Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today I have a guest who is a fantastic attorney, fantastic human being, fantastic entrepreneur. And one of the things I love about her, and I was just talking about it before, she's got her own sense of style. Like she's just incredibly unique. And with that, I want to welcome Deidre Von Rock to the podcast. So thanks for being here, Deidre.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me. I've always admired your podcast. I'm thrilled you've asked me to be a guest.
Thank you. So I asked you to come on the podcast because you've done some really great things in your practice. But what I'd like to do is first kind of talk about your background. Like when did you open up your practice? And kind of like the story behind your practice. So, my recollection, you started your practice about a decade ago and you built a heck of a practice. So let's just back up. Like, when did you start practicing? How did you get into law? Just give people a sense of who you are, where you've been, and what you've done. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can go back to the beginning, I guess. I grew up in a small town in Washington State, very foresty. Sort of grunge started that sort of lifetime ago. Is that sort of a lot of flannel, a lot of blue collar work, a lot of challenges in a humble little town. But I never really fit in there. And I knew that one day when I grew up, I was going to take myself out of there and go off to college and be something professional, something important, something where I could buy great clothes. I didn't know what that was exactly. But I was always very good at sort of the liberal arts, at, English and philosophy and logic and things like that. And so when the time came to be old enough to sort of figure out what I was going to do, I went to San Diego State and became a poli-sci major and just absolutely loved it. Those were my people, learning about government and politics and wars and history and the future and what can be done and who's really influential in that space. And at the end of the day, the lawyers, really, lawyers are very pivotal in, creating this world that we live in. So that sort of lit a fire. I had a double minor in Spanish and in English literature. And that sort of, gave me even some more, I think, depth into how varying disciplines work together and, what we can put together with our various talents and interests to bring to the practice of law. So, in addition, back in the day, when you have a poli-sci degree, there's not a lot of options, right? You get your master's, you go to law school, or you get a job that they say graduation that asks, do you want fries with that? So, off to law
well,
school.
there is some truth to that. So let me see if I can summarize it and you can correct me because I have confidence that you will. So you're moving, you're looking at this and was it like a 2 to 3 year process on this pivot point? Or was it a 12-month process that you're like, okay, I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to leave. I'm set up my own shop. And when you set up your own shop, were you clear on your niche? Were you clear on what you wanted to do? What was your thought process in?
Yes. I would say, toward a few years before I left, I just thought I was really unhappy as a lawyer, right? I thought just being a lawyer is hard. It's not satisfying. I'm not getting any joy out of this. And then it took me a while to figure out, because I had a lot of personal things going on as well, that I don't like being a lawyer. I don't like working for these people. I don't like working for people. Okay, so how am I going to create this place where I would enjoy working, where others would enjoy working, where clients would enjoy being? So it was probably about 2 years before I left, I started thinking about it. And then in 2013, in the beginning, I started putting together the plan to go.
So that's good. So the insight was, it wasn't I didn't like to be a lawyer. I didn't like to be a lawyer under this structure where I felt accountable and reportable in this construct, in this culture in which I don't feel like I belong anymore. And I feel like I've outgrown this and I want autonomy over my time, autonomy over how I practiced. I want to feel good about how I practice. And I want to kind of design what a great practice, what a great life looks like to me. And I know thus far, this is not it. Like this kind of sucks. And I think that's a legal technical term. So let me ask you a question. When did you make the decision to open up your own practice? And what was the inspiration there? Because one of the challenges, and a lot of people listen to podcasts, especially some of the younger lawyers, are like, when do I know it's time to open up my own practice? How do I open up my own practice? What was the thought process behind it? I know what mine was, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone, but you know, what was yours? What was your thought
Yeah.
process? Like, when did you do it? Why did you do it?
Yeah. So I ended up staying at that firm for 16 years, and I had made partner after 5. But there was, sort of the primary rainmaker and then some of the other partners, all male. And in the beginning, before I was married, before I had kids, I didn't mind working 60, 70 hours a week and, really putting that in. Being the sort of associate you see depicted on TV almost, right? Just grinding. But once I did get married and have kids, then, you want a little bit of work-life balance. And that was not something the sort of patriarchal setup of the firm was inclined to give. And so I did what I could for a long time with various caregivers and things over the year. When my boys were young, they're about a year and a half apart. So
Yeah, let's hang here for a second. So it was a classic billable hour firm, I would assume. No
yes,
contingency fee work, no fix, so it's all billable hour.
yes,
And you are the only female partner at the firm at the time. Is that correct?
yes,
And
yes,
then you have 2 kids, a year and a half apart, and they're like, "Hey, look, that's not how it works here. You gotta, it's great that you have kids and all that, and we're a big support of you, like as a mom and everything, but you got to nail your billables."
right. I was still making my billables, but I was trying to not necessarily be behind the desk for 10 to 12 hours a day.
Perfect.
And they were very uncomfortable with that,
So
with not seeing me physically in the office at all the time. They wanted me to be there.
yeah, well, this is good. So this is important because you're sitting here going, "Hey, this is not, the purpose of the podcast, great life, great practice." But for you're sitting here going, "Look, I'm nailing my numbers. I'm doing exactly what I need to do as a partner. I'm doing my job." But you physically want me here in addition to doing my job. And that was when the culture rub started to, I guess the shine started wore off partnership, right?
It did. So this is really started escalating, say, 2010 to 2013. So many people don't seem to remember this, but before 2020, we all went into the office every day.
Yeah.
And if you had like free Fridays or something like that, that was considered a very big deal. So, to ask to be hybrid or remote or to leave at 3 to pick up your kids and then get them sorted and continue to work from home, it just wasn't something that the firm was ready to do.
Anything else that you can think about that at that time period that would support or you would encourage other attorneys to grow their practice?
Well, I also I was very interested in the brand that I was going to project.
Okay.
And so I immediately hired like graphic artists to build my logo, to get my branding started, and to put up a website. I was doing this simultaneously with sort of my in-person networking because I wanted to present who I was to the people I was networking with.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your personal brand, because you have, if anybody watches this or anybody we'll talk about your website in a second, but you have a very unique look. Talk to me about how you decided your personal brand.
Is based on my personal likes. I think a lot of law firms are so cookie cutter. Every other one in San Francisco has a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, some dusty law books, and, scales of justice, or at least at that time. And I really wanted my personality to come out. I wanted to be, or my personality, the branding, the values I put into the firm, I wanted that to attract new business, right? Not just, I can do law, they can do law, he can do law, right? Not just law. It's the entire experience with us. And that is the sort of client I wanted to attract, someone who would appreciate that. because it goes much deeper than our branding. It's the whole way we conduct ourselves, but it starts out with the branding.
And so for you, it was more a reflection of your personal values coming through the branding. And I think
Yes.
I think it's one of the things that's great about you. Okay, so keep going. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So you made this
Uh,
decision and you hired a PR firm, and you kind of start to pivot with this personal brand, like you said, and it made it unique. Did you decide to have a particular edge to it, or what was the thinking?
so I wanted color, and we went with pink. And that really became a defining part of our branding. And I don't, as you see, I'm in all black today. I'm usually in all black. Like I am not a pinky pink Barbie, like, well, you see my Halloween costume, but I am not, but that's not me. But as far as fashion, but aesthetically, it, it hit because law firms aren't pink, right? Law firms aren't pretty. They're not airy. They're not elegant, classy, elevated. They're usually not those things, or at least not at that time. And so I wanted to stand out. I wanted to project that is important to us. And that's going to be how your experience is with it, right? Not just another overly thick ivory raised letter business card and a website we threw up in 2 hours and paid no attention to, right? We're going to put as much attention into our work for you as we do in all the rest of it.